So I have questions, but I'm going to start with your intro, and then we'll just get going.
Sounds good.
So today's conversation has me hyped. I love reconnecting with someone I normally just exchange memes or brief thoughts with. I met Jen almost as soon as my family moved to Pittsburgh. We were in the same first grade class at Trinity Christian School. From there, our lives kept overlapping, the same conferences, the same retreats, the same things that have an impact on who you become. Over the years, I photographed her wedding, her growing family. I've watched with deep appreciation the kind of people Jen and her family have consistently chosen to be. This is wholly unrelated, but absolutely essential to the story. One of my most vivid childhood memories is the mac and cheese her mom used to make when we were playing growing up. I didn't grow up in a mac and cheese family, okay?
Oh
And
no.
yeah, that was an actual tragedy. Thank you for understanding. Your mom made really good mac and cheese, and I appreciate that. So shout out to
Oh,
Lori Meneely. uh,
for sure.
professionally, professionally, Jen brings that same steadiness, care, and excellence into her work. She's an accomplished engineering leader with more than 15 years of experience in the nuclear industry, currently serving as an engineering director at Westinghouse, where she leads and develops a global team of more than 225 engineers across multiple countries. She's responsible for complex systems, high stakes decision making, and the kind of leadership that blends technical rigor and deep investment in people, managing multimillion-dollar budgets, advancing innovation, and mentoring the next generation of engineers along the way. Beyond the titles and achievements, Jen is someone I've respected for years for her integrity, her clarity, her commitment to growth, and the way she shows up for her work, her family, and her community. I'm super excited to have a conversation with her today. So, hi, welcome. Question number one. When you think about mentorship in your own life, who comes to mind first and why?
So honestly, the very first person who comes to mind is my dad, because you said all those really nice things about me. I think we could have a whole separate conversation about, imposter syndrome or whatever, but he just from an integrity and thoughtfulness perspective and caring. He really has a heart for helping people grow, kind of that guidance counselor sort of vibe, and uh, like a huge impact on who I am. I mean, I think our parents do that, good and bad, but from my perspective in my life, like he has been, an incredible presence, and maybe not always with a like what you should do next, but like helping me think through things and be less chaotic and more thoughtful through asking questions, and providing a perspective that's more balanced. So that's if I had to pick one person, I think that model works very well for him and really helps inform even how I talk to people now. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I get, like, for those of you who don't know her dad, I get that vibe. Like, that is like, there is a approachable, steady, like steady. That man is steady.
Right.
And I can
Right.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um, so you do have a formal mentor.
Yeah, so that has also been I have one, and something that even if it's over time, if it's not one person, there are people that I've intentionally had touch points with for different reasons. So I may not have like said this person is my mentor, but like, oh, I talk to this person once a month just because. And it could be about personal stuff, it could be about work stuff, but having those perspectives. But yes, I have a mentor. Yes. Yep.
And I want to talk about the mentor, but I think one of the things that's been interesting in this whole conversation is that a lot of us have people who we think of in this way, even if we've never said, like, hey, will you be my mentor? Or it hasn't been formal. And I think one of the things that I'm encouraged by is like, hey, when you have those people in your life, you're allowed to like treat that in that way. Like there doesn't have to be this super formulaic call and response, ask, request kind of function. Like
Right. Right.
we're all aided by people in our paths who are willing to take the time out to talk to us. So thanks to those people.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Can you take us back to when you first met your formal mentor and tell us a little bit about what was happening in your career or life at that moment and kind of how that relationship began?
Yeah. So, um, The role I have now, if you had asked me, 7 years ago if I would be here, I would have told you no. And it's still astonishing to me that I've had this job for 3 years, because it's very busy. But this role that I have now was a huge career shift for me. Before I had this role, I was in more of a technical leadership function, but my job was what I would consider more individual contributor. And this role is, obviously it's still engineering, so it's still very technical, but it is managing people, and financial responsibility, and all of that kind of stuff. So when I took this, I was like, wow, like I need somebody because I don't even know what I don't know. And it was really, really challenging, for a variety of reasons. People are messier than engineering calculations. So yeah, so big shifts there, and kind of an inflection point for me of like, what do I want to do? I'm not someone here for a title, but I want to make sure that I'm contributing meaningfully, that I'm learning, that I'm not bored, all of those sorts of things. And so finding someone who's like, yeah, this is how like I've contributed meaningfully, or what I look for, or how to talk to people was important, because I'm not I'm used to trying things and failing, I'll say, but I'm not used to just straight up being bad at things. And it felt that way, even if it did not appear that way to other people. It felt that way sitting in my seat. Like, these people need me to do what? Like, so and so, I have to call HR about what? Like, it just every day was just like a fresh, like, oh, like, don't where is the grown up? Because like I can't possibly be the grown up in this situation right now. And I was. So she's like, okay, cool. I need help. And but like I'll add that I also do better seeing an example than necessarily coming up with a list of questions, if that makes sense. So like,
Yep.
just sitting down and saying, this person is your mentor now, doesn't really help, because I'll stare at them and be like, okay, like, okay, I'll ping you if I need you, but I found, like, especially with the specific person that I am working with now, it's like, oh, like, well, here, this is what I do, this is how I run my stats, or come to this with me and just see how I am doing things, because then there's a lot more room for me to ask questions, because I'm not just like, how would you manage something like this? Like, I'm actually watching it happen. Yeah.
And like, admittedly, the vast majority of the first people I asked to do this are people who responded to the question I had on Instagram about like, do you have a mentor? And I think one of the things that stood out to me that like I actually talked to a number of people about was like, have you ever had somebody let you shadow them in a meeting? Like, that is one of the most tangible. I was floored. Like, I've never in my life, and like I've had great mentors, but like often they sit outside of my direct
Right.
workspace. And so like that is not, it's helpful because they're distant, but like if I could let someone watch me, if I could watch someone run a meeting, run a staff meeting, like what an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, and like it was just something I didn't even think of to ask for. They offered it, and in now, like in retrospect, and you like, I have someone who I would consider a sponsor in my life, so not a mentor,
Mm,
and they are very good at that. So like, the one of the reasons that I was comfortable jumping outside of the box for this role, was because this sponsor had been in my management chain for a while, and because of the projects I was being assigned, I was sitting with his staff often, and so for me, that staff becoming my peers was not scary. It was like, no, I know these people, and he has found ways to expose me to this, and this will feel comfortable. Like, this team, my own team was a lot more stressful because I hadn't done that before. But like,
yeah.
to your point about meeting shadowing, it wasn't shadowing there, but it was exposure. And I
Yeah.
think, with this mentor that I have now, I'm very familiar with how we do things in the organization I'm in, but seeing, an adjacent organization that is responsible for very different things, and just like how this leader is leading their team and how they're asking questions and all of that is just like really great exposure to a totally different leadership style, different set of problems, and how he digs in. So like how special for me that like he was like, yes, and you should come here. And I'm just like, okay, like sounds great. Like how I can't pass this up. Yeah.
Well, and I think you mentioned imposter syndrome at the beginning, and I think anytime you regale someone with the way their titles or functions sound from somebody else, it is always like, hold on.
The person, yeah.
Right, like, that feels like I had a hard time getting out of the house this morning. But I do think like what we're talking about is like this kind of like access, like this familiarity of like this is not a scary place you've never been before. Like we can bring people with us.
Yep. Yep. No, exactly. And like, thinking about the sponsor versus the mentor, it was for the same purpose. So if at some point, something in that org looks interesting to me to try, like it's people that I've met before or talked to before. And Westinghouse might seem big, but it's just like anywhere else. You meet the kind of the key people, and they get you to the other key people, and it's great. And so just, not only from observing someone else's leadership style, but also just exposure to more people in the same organization, and just seeing different things. Yeah.
So, can I ask a question about the sponsor function?
Yeah.
Is that something that Westinghouse put in place? Like, is that a formal thing, or is that something that you also found kind of on your own?
I would say it's something that I ended up in on my own. So one thing that we do a lot of, and especially in my role now, obviously, is like talent management. And I ended up with an assignment, and again, this is my imposter syndrome speaking, but like someone thought I did a nice job, and so they kept giving me more things to do, and I kept doing a good enough job that I kept getting more things to do and more exposure, and then ending up, sitting with the staff of this vice president on a regular basis, talking about things. So I wouldn't, I have told this person I feel like they are a sponsor to me, but it's not like you, Bethany, roll in the door to Westinghouse tomorrow and are assigned a sponsor. It just happened that way. I would say that I have people in my org that I probably play that role for, without the like label attached.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I think like, I've worked in a number of organizations where you have like an onboarding buddy or you have like somebody you're connected to, and I'm not sure like I'm the first one to say that if it's not a system, if it's not a structure, it doesn't last, it doesn't persist. Like there has to be some sort of structure. And at the same time, it's never going to be as meaningful or valuable as something that you find on your own. And so I think the question that I would ask when you think about the people who've served in these roles for you, the people who you fill this role for, there is some obvious allowance for the amount of time or space that takes in your workload. And so I think the question I would ask is from a Westinghouse standpoint, what feeds that culture, I guess?
So this is easier to answer for what my job is than what the benefit to me is. So I'll start with like my job is to develop people from a technical perspective to make sure they can do work. That is like my job in a nutshell. And so, they have to be, the people need to be working on projects because that's how we pay our bills, but they also don't grow. They don't learn without opportunities, through their onboarding buddy or through their technical mentor or through all of those connections, because we can't grow if we don't know, what we're doing or watching other people do those things. So I think we do an okay job from just like a tactical perspective of budgeting things like that. Like, this task should take 40 hours, but we put 50 here, type of thing. That's all, financial decisions. What we have spent a lot of time doing is developing a strong technical leadership team that has a little bit more flexibility with their time,
Okay.
to make sure that they are developing people only. So like I put a very high value on that and figure out like from a financial perspective how to make that work. Um, from a personal perspective, there if I'm spending outside of work time on something, it's usually people development related because I think that is valuable. And
Yeah.
so that, if I can spend an extra hour helping someone do something that helps them grow themselves, that's valuable to me because, they're more valuable to everybody now type of
Yeah.
thing. And so really kind of driving that mindset with my team, of like people development is the most important thing we can do, is something I do, and my everyone handles that differently, I'll say, amongst my peers, but we all tend to like, I'm supposed to be developing all these people to be the best mechanical engineers there are. That doesn't come without arranging the time to support that task. I would say from a leadership perspective, like for me, outside of mechanical, I appreciate how much people are willing to give their time to me when I'm sure they have better things to be doing. And
Yeah.
I think I hate wasting people's time. So making sure that I'm not and that I show up prepared or people show up prepared is very important too. Yeah.
I appreciate all of that. And I think like a current fixation of mine is definitely like just functionally the realities of culture. And that so much of this, like, do you exist in a culture that says you're worth developing, or do you
Yep.
live in a culture that says I really just expect you to show up and be the adult? I think like the other recurring theme is like all of a sudden it's your job and you're like, oh no. Like
Right.
this is serious.
Right.
Like
Right.
where are the adults?
Yep. Yep.
And I think maybe in a world where many of us have found ourselves in that space, like I want the person who steps into my chair next to be more prepared than I was.
Correct.
Like
Yep.
we should all want that.
Yep. And that's, just like the same way you feel about your kids, right? Like at a bare minimum, they should be better than me because like, what am I even doing here? Exactly. And that's how I feel about, my seat or the seats that all are under me is like, be better than me. Like
Yeah.
we're all better if we are continuing to develop people and really like find opportunities because I have been given so many, and finding those things for other people is really important to me because like at the end of the day that they're who needs to keep the trains running, and I'm just here to support them doing that. Yeah.
Yes. 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 Thank you. Another recurring theme that I'm fixated on right now is the concept of trust. And so when I think about the mentors you've had, what helped you feel like you could trust them to see you, even the things that you were like, I don't know if I did this right, or maybe I know I did this wrong, or is there a better way to do this? Kind of, can you talk about that a little bit?
So I think transparency is a big part of trust, and people that are willing to kind of share their own struggles or things that they've maybe had to do a few times before they got it right, or alternatively things that are people that are able to share things about the organization that maybe like someone who's very black and white wouldn't share. So like
Hmm.
having those leaders, who can say, who can share, what's the phrase, like being transparent as appropriate for what you're
Hmm.
able to do. So like, I try to answer all the questions that I get, but there's a different sort of level of transparency from, one of my direct reports versus someone who works for them.
Yep.
And I'm sure that, my boss handles it the same way. Like if Jen is asking me, I can share, 3 levels deep. If it's, a junior engineer, it's going to be different. But like
Yep.
building trust because you're able to share information and not like, well, I can't talk about that today. For me, that's how I'm like, okay, this is the person I can talk to, and really share a bit more, and kind of go a level deeper. I think too, for some of the more complex things that like I've needed help with, getting having someone who like I'm not just walking in with a problem statement, but they're like, well, what do you mean by this, or why are you asking me this, to like be a little bit more curious with me, even so that I'm sharing more because they're actually listening to
Yep.
what I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Simon Sinek that had a whole thing about, transparency isn't telling you everything I know, it's telling you the landscape of how I'm making my
Yeah,
decisions. And like
exactly. Yep.
I
Yep.
think I think there, at least even in my leadership journey, that is not something people understand enough.
Right.
When I said we need to be transparent with our staff, I'm not saying share the deepest secrets of your senior leadership team. I am saying this is the environment we're in. This is how we make decisions. This is our guiding core tenet mission, whatever you want to say. But something about transparency is reality, right? Like
Yep.
it I love engineers because I think things like shake tests are just like more real. Like
I know what you're actually, yeah.
like that means something concrete. But like if I think it twofold, trust is twofold in this space. I think like one, do I trust to share things with you? Do I also trust you're not going to repeat something
Yeah.
that I wouldn't want to have repeated? And I think that's another part of mentorship that I think people get hung up on a little bit. Like, is somebody going to find out what I said?
Yeah. Yeah. And I I feel like that's like, how do I want to say this? I've struggled with this a bit myself as a leader because I naturally kind of want to like build rapport with myself and my team by being transparent. And like an adjustment I've had to make is like, okay, and it's not so much the dirty laundry piece, but like the churn. Like it's like I don't need to share that like my boss has churned on this, 7 times. But like, and like in turn, like how do I filter this so that like I'm not sharing my own frustration with a person or a situation with my team and providing clear direction to them, like even if that means I'm the filtering,
Hmm.
and like, okay, this is what's coming in, this is what I need to send out. On the other hand, for people who want to be in my chair someday, like they do benefit from seeing how I'm told information.
Hmm.
And so it's like a fine line of like, okay, I'm filtering this because I need you to do X, Y, and Z, even if I think it's stupid, like here we are. But also like at what point, if I'm seeing a leader write a message that I don't even agree with how they're writing it, but it's not, but other people should see that too.
Hmm.
Because, they need to understand like, hey, we are very much in my style right now because you work for me, but like you won't always work for me. And here are how other things are happening in this organization so that you recognize that like every situation and every leader is very different. So yeah, I feel like that's a line I walk a lot.
Well, and I think like these are the tangibles of not winding up in that chair and being like, whoa. And I think even disclosing that, like you won't always work for me. Like I will admit, I think annual reviews are the best thing going. I think you should know the great things you did this year, because if I'm telling you bad things you did this year, I'm a bad leader. Like your annual review is not a surprise time for me to tell
It
you how
should
you
never
failed to
be
meet.
right.
Never. Like there should be no surprises in your annual review. And so like I'm a photographer. So like I take pictures from your year and I'm like, we're going to talk about your year. It is also really important for you to acknowledge you will not always work for me. So that is not how this goes a lot of places.
Right, right. Yep, yep. Yeah, and I think like nothing I say in that annual review should be a surprise to anyone. And if I haven't told you it before then, like that says more about me than about you. Yeah, I'm with you there.
And we call that culture, actually.
Yep.
Okay, so when you think about any mentor, sponsor, kind of leaders that you've worked with, what do they do or what can they do that makes their guidance particularly meaningful or adoptable?
Um, so I think the kind of the best conversations are when they are asking questions so that I am talking a lot and recognizing that I already know what to do. And like they are asking me the questions so that I am convincing myself of what I know I need to do rather than them trying to convince me to do anything. It's more drawing it out of me because you're always going to go do something better when you think it's your idea. Like just like from an ownership perspective, if this person convinces me through my own talking to do something, I'm gonna be more likely to go do it. Um, and then I'll just go back to the leadership by example. Like it is another thing I did when I took this job was I talked to three of my then peers, and just like, how do you run your meetings? How do you do this? And I got three very different ideas, and I sort of like took what I liked and threw out what I didn't. But just having that like extra pushed on like, okay, like here's all of the metrics that I am now responsible for, but like how do I communicate that to my team that's not just like, here's your list of metrics, go figure it out to your culture point. Like what do these actually mean for you to have actionable things? And so like talking to other people to figure out how I would actually like execute my job was important. So I think that's, from a maybe a soft skills perspective, the questioning part, and then from a tactical perspective, just like, okay, what are you doing? Because like your shit seems to be together. So like, how do I get there? Yeah.
You're where I'd like to be, so help me get from point A to point
You
B.
seem to be running around panicking. So like, can you please help?
Well, and I think like we could have our own easily hour-long conversation about just metrics in general. Like I do think, you know, I'm a feel-good boss. I'm a
Yeah.
I want you to believe you can change the world boss. You do have to do your job. Like I just I you
Correct.
like
You
they
also
both
need to pay
have
the
to
bills.
exist.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm gonna not have that whole hour-long conversation. Maybe we'll come back to that another time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I would look forward to that conversation. Um when you so I think this is kind of going to flip this when you think about people coming to you or encouraging someone to grow in this space, w- what is the encouragement and the ability to be honest, share things that like, and I'm going to say not maybe could go wrong but have gone wrong, like what is the encouragement in saying like, hey, you can do this?
So I like it better when people see me struggle in real time. Because then it's just like, yeah, well, you saw what I did in that meeting last week. Like, do better. That set the bar for you. But like when here, so where I struggle sometimes is that like I don't always it, it's reading people. I feel like all I'm doing all day is reading people. And my inclination when you're showing up with a problem is just be like, well, like go do X and Y. Like rather than I think, same with kids, but like in some situations, my team doesn't need me to tell them to go do X and Y. They've already done X and Y, or it's like okay, thanks for nothing. And it's more that they may have just needed to complain. And so it's that whole like, all right, are you here to complain, which is fine, or are you here because you need me to do something? And
Yep.
like every time I hire a new person, this is like I learn the hard way. Every single time, I'm like, oh, like this person did not need me to just like fire a cannon at this problem. Like, I should have asked more questions about what they were looking for. Like, every single time, Bethany, that I hire someone, I make the same mistake. So maybe someday I will prove it's not this week. But it's you know, are people looking for help to work through a challenge? Because most of them are. But how do you go about doing that? Versus just solving it for them. Yeah.
Well, and I think at baseline, you've said a lot of insightful things, but like all day long, all I'm doing is reading people. Like that is the work. Like that's the job. Like whether
Yep.
you're an engineer or a baker, all day long, the work is reading people.
Yep. Yep.
And that's why we're tired all the time.
All the time, right? That's why, like, after, like, in the evening, I'm like, I don't, sometimes, like, I don't, even the TV is too much, right?
Yep.
Like, 'cause it's just like, I can't, like, analyze more
I'm done.
people
I'm done.
interactions today. Like, just over it. Yeah.
I remember my first real leadership role ended up being incredibly chaotic. Like we ended up launching a pilot program that wasn't part of like even the scope of work when I assumed this role. And I would get home from work and I would sit down like don't talk to me. Like
Yep.
for like a month. I was like I'm just trying to survive because all day long you're just reading the people. It's exhausting.
Yeah. Well, and especially when they're new or what you're trying to do is new. And
Mhm.
I don't know, like I actually another, like, I'll keep pointing back to it. When I took this job, I put a note on my calendar every 3 months, be like, you made it 3 months, you've made it 6 months, you've made it 9 months. Because I just didn't expect to make it that long, first of all. And like, second of all, like it did, like every time that would pop up, I'd be like, okay, it was slightly easier. Like I'm slightly less exhausted. And I think for me, especially, with kids, and I mean, everybody has outside of work commitments, right? But like something I think a lot more seriously about now, even if I look at what's next, is like, even if I got something else tomorrow, that's still a solid, especially at this level, like a solid 18 months of pure struggle. And is that really an impact? Is the job worth it? Like, is that really an impact that I want to do right now? Versus like, my job is enough. And it's always a balancing act, right? It's a balancing act for everybody, but that's something that I feel like the more experience I get, the more I'm like, ugh, like this has to be really something where I'm really motivated by the message or the challenge or whatever, for it to be worth the impact of coming home every day and being dead. Because that's a real thing.
And I think like, one of the things that I feel very strongly is that we all know a lot of things. And the more we all know, the better off we will be. And I do think there is just like, hey, you might really be looking at this opportunity and say the grass really looks greener. And it might be greener grass, but there is a learning curve. And it like I love 18 months because a lot of people say, your first 90 days or your first year or like, no, really it's at least a year. And I like 18 months because a year you might be like, I've done this. And then you're like, okay, you're gaining traction at that point. And I think that is like just such wise advice. Like maybe it's not the time. Like when you say like, how do you know it's the time? Like, do you have 18 months to come home and be drained? Like, do you?
Right. I really like I keep calling out my sponsor, but like he would say like, and this is aggressive. So like for Ed, if you use this clip, like I'm not sure I endorse this, but he will say, your first year is a struggle. By the end of your second year, you have your act together, you are confident and you're rolling. And by the end of your third year, you should know what you're doing next. And I would say you don't need to feel like you know what you're doing next at the end of your third year. If you're happy where you are, I mean, we're not all on, track to rule the world, and that is okay. But I think that 1 to 2 year, or 0 to 2 year window, it is true, because that's the 18-month mark. It's like, okay, like I've now at least made most of the decisions that we're living with, and I know why, as opposed to inheriting somebody else's decisions and struggling through, like, okay, whatever it is, like right or wrong, and it's just not me. And so now that we're here and I know, and we're all dealing with the consequences of my own decisions, this is I deal with this. Yeah.
Well, and I think you said something earlier that I think dovetails with that really well, like to feel like you're doing your job well. Like just because it might like, and I think no one really knows what it feels like, right? There's what we project or what we present, and I don't mean project in a bad way as much as like I'm leading these people, so I should not cry at the beginning of every staff meeting. Like that might not be helpful. And so like the reality is, I think there is something lost in that presentation of like, oh, she just kept on like we make it look easy, and there's something good about making it look easy, and there's also something that is lost to the people who come behind us when we make it look easy, because it feels a little bit like a false like, so this was actually the hardest season in your life. Yes it was.
Well, and I'll say, like, at my year-end review, that first year, like, yeah, back to like our commentary on metrics, those were all good. And, the team was doing fine. But like, and so like, hearing from my boss that they also thought I was doing a good job was like nice. But like I walked away thinking like, okay, like, but I have a list of like 30 things I still need to do, because I'm not there yet. And like part of that is, type A firstborn child. Like I will always have a list of 30 things that I need to do to be better. But I think that, as I gain experience, become more mature, whatever it is, like that list does look different. And it will look different, but coming back to the like being able to share that with other people, and help advocate for them, but also help them think through, like, it's not, more money in a director level role is great, but like you also have to spend that money doing things at your house because you don't have the time to do that now. And so it's you're using your time and your money very differently depending on your level of responsibility.
And I think like, again, every single thing you've said is profound. Thank you for that. But like in reality, like when they say mo money, mo problems, like when you're not home to clean, to cook, to pick up your kids from school, to do whatever those things are, they are trade-offs. And so I think this is like just my general encouragement to like, the guy that I work with so much, his name is Scott Jeffrey Miller. He did a lot of the mentoring things I went through. He is a mentor in my life. His whole thing is like how to take your career from accidental to deliberate. Like, do you know what you want? And I guess that's like the real encouragement is like knowing what these things look like in real life should help you chart out a path, because it's not always what you think it will be.
Correct. And I think like, there are some people that, okay, well, I want to be on the executive staff someday, or I want the title of vice president, and like more power to them because they can point to a role and work that down. I think what I tend to tell people, if they're not like, if it's not if you can't point to a title, like great, because it actually makes it easier for you. But what you need to do is go through and think about what you want to do, to your point. Like, and this was one thing that I worked on this kind of in this past year with my mentor. And anyway, was like, okay, you might not know what you want to do next, but like, what does it look like in 5 years? And actually one thing my mentor shared was like, what another mentor had shared with him was like, think about your perfect dinner. Like, everything is going great. What does a perfect dinner look like? And it's not just like, well, a piece of steak. It is, how is the steak prepared? Like, how is it on the plate? What is on the plate with the steak? What is in your cup? Who is at your table? What does the room, like, you need to dig down to that level of detail. It's always easier for me to list out things that I don't want, which is equally important, but like thinking through in 5 years, maybe several opportunities for, different sorts of roles, whatever their titles are will appear. But, if that means traveling every single weekend, then that doesn't work. Or if that means, missing, something at home every Monday, like, is that okay? Is that
Yep.
trade-off okay? But recognizing like where you can be flexible on both sides versus where you cannot. And so like, what does that perfect meal look like to you? Because that will help you evaluate opportunities that come along. Because there will always be a different opportunity. You don't need to jump on one because of scarcity, or you think another one won't come, or whatever, because they do. So that's, I don't know, that steak dinner. Well, the dinner. I keep
Yeah.
eating steak. I mean, I like steak, but that's probably not what's on my perfect dinner plate. But like that is helpful to me, even looking at, people. Oh, Jen, you should try this. Oh, you should try this, and I can read it and be like I'm not going to Korea once a month. Like, thank you. No.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like, again, it's so tangible.
Right.
Like, there are only, and like, I'm a huge believer, like, you can engineering hate this all you want to. I'm a huge believer, and like, maybe you agree with me, I don't know. I'm a huge believer that time is amorphous.
Mm,
And like, our perception of the passage of time is often more deficit minded than it should be, but like, there are still 24 hours in a day.
right.
Bethany's emotional feelings about time aside, there are still only 24 hours in a day. And I had a very wise mentor person tell me in Utah, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And I think sometimes we look
Correct.
at the next opportunity like these things are static. Like, the way I've lived my life will stay the same. I'll just get to do these other things. Like, no, there are always other factors you can't see. And so one of the things that Jill said when I talked to Jill a couple weeks ago was like, she doesn't travel overnight in the first year after having a child. And so I'm wondering if there's anything you're willing to share that is like a non-negotiable for you personally. Like, what is the thing that you would say absolutely not to a job?
So I, speaking of time being amorphous, I feel like this is a constant conversation that my husband and I have all of the time. Because he'll joke, and he's great. He's very smart. He's smarter than me. But like, you know, he's just waiting for me to get one more promotion so he can like quit. That is just what. It's always one more. It's never like what it is. It's just like get one more, and then I'm out of here. And I'm like, well, I also would like to be out of here. Can we like not? Anyway, um, but I think it's a constant negotiation. So like, if someone told me I had to travel half of the time, I would say that does not work.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, if it's hey, it's a week a month, or it's whatever, like that's a turnaround. And like, what is team, what is the home team going to do with this? Can we make it
Yeah.
work? Is the job worth it because it's something one of us has always wanted to do?
Yeah.
I think what's interesting is also recognizing when that's not working anymore. So my husband actually, I think, I don't even know what year is it. Probably like a while ago. Took a job, and it was right around the time our first kid was born, because he needed to do something else. Like, it was one of those
Yep.
situations where it was like, if you keep complaining about this, like, I'm not listening anymore. Like, get a new job.
Yeah.
And so he did. But that job required a lot of travel in the spring and in the fall, because it was like field service work, and that was fine. It worked until it didn't work anymore.
Yep.
And so he did it for about 3 years, and then it was just like, we can't, like, team reevaluation here, because
Yep.
this isn't working. And being willing to listen to whoever is on your team when they're telling you, yes, like, I know you love this. He loved that job. Like, I know you love this job,
Yep.
but like, the unit here can no longer
Yep.
support this.
Yeah.
And so I always try to be very mindful of that too. When people are like, "Oh, Jen, like you," and it's just like, well, no, like, this isn't just a me
Right.
decision. it's like, what are we willing to spend our money on to make up for the fact that like
Yeah.
I'm never home on Thursdays or
Yeah.
things like that. Or it's always the risks of the situation and the extra cost to make it work. Yeah, cost in time or money or whatever, energy.
I love the usage of the term home team. Like, I think that's important. Whoever comprises your home team,
Yep.
it has to work, and you do have to be able to say this isn't working anymore. And like, this is not a not working anymore thing. But like, I've always had jobs where I traveled, and like, I vividly remember when I was flying back and forth between Florida and Orlando, I could fly from Pittsburgh to Orlando and be home in time for staff meeting on Monday morning. Um, that was magical. We live in Fargo, so like we lose a day on
Right. Going
every
Yep.
trip. So it's not that we are anti-travel, it's that we look at travel very differently now than we did in
Yep.
places where we lived with a major airport. And so even if it seems like, well, I've always had jobs where I traveled, it's different now. And so I think that's just a helpful kind of framework that I appreciate immediately, immensely, and immediately. I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I respect your time, so I'm going to wrap it up. But I like this question. What do you try to model, consciously or unconsciously, when you're guiding younger team members?
Um, so I usually try to listen first. And I think that's actually something I've had to get worse at, isn't the right answer. Like, I've had to stop listening so much. Like one of the things, like I have been very like, open door, ask me whatever. And then there are some days where I'm like, why is this person message? Like, ask your own boss. Like mistake. I'm too approachable. But like being a good listener, because that is how I collect the data in my head of how my own team is doing. And I think the other thing is, the more, especially, and this is going to sound, it should not be saying especially for women, but I'm going to, especially for women, the more structured I am, the less, if 80% of everything can be structured, then that 20% is fine. We have enough bandwidth, especially at work, to ride the wave because there's always going to be chaos. But if like I know, I have to hire 30 people and I know that my team and I talk about that once a month on this day, then that means when my boss is like, "Hey Jen, you were supposed to hire 30 people. What's going on?" We talked about it already and it's planned and it's structured. Yep. And I'm not spinning anybody up on some like last minute request that is routine. And that I'm less good at, I'm less good at that at home. But it is a huge benefit at work to knowing like all of these routine things that we have to do here are planned and structured, which leaves room for the chaos intentionally. And so having people set up, if it's making sure your regular touch point is with your mentor is scheduled, or if it's making sure like, yeah, I'm always going to the office on Tuesday because this is the person I eat lunch with and that's how I know what's going on. It's like, it's not just my tactical, like, I'm going to get my document done or whatever, but it's making things seem very routine so that you're not thinking about them.
And I think like your example of that lunch is important, right? Like one of the things I love about the working world is like, you accepted my calendar invite. Like it's on your calendar. I know that. So what things, like calendar the things and then look at your 80%. Don't be like, well, I calendared the mandatory whatever. And like, because what you calendar happens and what you don't calendar doesn't.
Yeah. Have you heard, and I have not done this, so I'm recommending someone who I have not done, but Kelly Nolan has a great set of like, she calendars everything, and there's some like free guidance and some things you can pay for as part of that. But like, I have found I've only done the free things, but like even those have made a big difference and like how I manage other people. I could be better at always be better at self management, but like to, in the interest of transparency, in the interest of like accountability and trust, and like, these are the things that we are accomplishing, and here's when we are going to do them, it's on the calendar. So like, and I even like we typically do a once a week meeting with my team on Mondays. I have a calendar reminder to remind them that they have actions to do before Wednesday, so that no one rolls in on Wednesday like, oh, I mean, shit happens, but like, no one is surprised. And if they aren't available, that Monday is the final reminder to swap with somebody else. Like that. And that works very well. And that removes a lot of panic from, my head. So, yeah.
Well, and we lose the time in the panic. Like so much of time is lost when we think about the time that we have, amorphous or otherwise, calendared or otherwise.
Right.
I will look all of her things up because I am a calendar girly. My last closing question before I thank you is, what is one thing that you feel like you're doing really well right now?
So, I mean, appropriate that the question before this was about structure. I think I have a very good structure in my work life, which allows me the mushy time as a working parent to get the mushy things done. Because I have this structure in place, it actually gives me more time, to your point about time being flexible, to get the other things done. And I think holding myself to the work structure really benefits me all around. I think even just saying this, if I did this in my personal life, I would feel like I had even more time. So, future Gen Action there, but like, that structure really, really helps everything else. It's like flossing your teeth and washing your face at night. Like, if once you get those down, you feel like you've, conquered everything because you freaking washed your face. But like, okay, but like, I've done this thing now and it's easy and it took 30 seconds and we feel good about it for the rest of the day. Same thing with being so structured that, you can handle the dumpster fires because you have this routine to accommodate the regular flow of things.
I love that, because my constant refrain is we can't deify chaos, right? Things have to be managed. So Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing the win. This was wonderful. Thank you for agreeing to do this.
We don't need to be so formal the next time we talk, but also this was great, and I can be able to contribute more as you need me, because I'm certainly learning from everybody that you're talking to. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Happy Friday. Have a great day, and look forward to chatting soon.
Good. See you, Bethany.
Bye.